Today, I'm off to the North Sea. I'm going to visit Germany's most popular island, Sylt, in the state of Schleswig-Holstein. If, like me, you travel here by train, your vacation starts at Westerland train station. And these guys will be the first people you meet. 4 meters tall, they're the Traveling Giants in the Wind by Martin Wolke. The best part is, it's only a 10-minute walk to the beach. Not too shabby, am I right? Here in Westerland is where Sylt's role as a vacation hotspot began. The island has been a magnet for tourists since the mid-19th century. Nowadays, Sylt has a lot of fans and more visitors than residents. Sylt is home to about 20,000 people and welcomes some 900,000 tourists every year. So the place can get pretty crowded in summer. If you're looking to beat the crowds, you should definitely come here between the months of November and April. Today, I want to find out what Sylt has to offer in the low season. Activities that'll chase away your winter blues. Tips for the great outdoors and indoors. Our hotspot this week, the only oyster farm in Germany. And a viewer from Hong Kong shares his vacation in Laos. If you want to hit the beaches on Sylt, you'll have to deal with the dunes. They're everywhere on the island, but make sure to stay on the walkways. The dunes provide natural coastal protection. The grass on them makes sure the sand doesn't get blown or washed away, and the islanders really need for it to stay this way. Follow me. Up there, we'll have a great view. The Uve Dune is the island's biggest elevation. It's 52 meters high, a great starting point for my trip around Sylt. But before we kick things off properly, here's a little overview for you guys to get a bit of a feeling for the island.
The West Beaches, more than 40 kilometers of fine white sand. The sea is wild here. Nowhere else on German coasts do the waves break with such force. That's why surfers love this place. The air here is especially healthy. The surf sprays fine droplets of mineral-rich seawater, and the wind just blows your cares away. Hiking and bicycle trails take you across the dunes to the east side of the island. This is the gentler side. Here, the intertidal mudflats of the Wadden Sea stretch out before you. Life here is determined by the tide. Every 6 hours, the sea comes in or goes out. A natural landscape especially worth protecting, the Wadden Sea, with its denizens, has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2009. The island's 10 villages have a distinctive Frisian style. Kampen embodies luxury. With its upscale boutiques, it's a showplace for the well-heeled. Sylt is the most elegant of the 12 German North Sea islands. The Frisian village of Keitum is steeped in tradition. The buildings date from the 18th century. They're known as captains' houses. In the local museum, you can find out about the way people on Sylt used to They were seafarers and whalers, captains and fishermen. Then tourism came towards the end of the 19th century and turned the fishing island into a vacation island. Everyone finds something special about Sylt, somewhere between the sea and the tidal flats, and the inviting Frisian atmosphere.
I've made my way up to the north of the island, to List. It's not only Sylt's northernmost town, it's the northernmost town in all of Germany. Everything beyond List is Denmark. Starting from List Harbor, this ship is going to take me to see what might be the mudflat's most popular inhabitants, the seals. I hope we're lucky enough to see some. Chances are good. The North Sea's biggest seal herds live between the North Frisian Islands. A little word of advice. Don't make the mistake I made and leave your binoculars at home. There they are! A visit to the mudflats is one of the highlights of any trip to Sylt, but of course around this time of year there's lots more to do around here. Check out our recommendations.
If you're on Sylt in February, you can help drive away the winter. The Bikabrennen is the first big festival of the year, and it always takes place on February 21st. It's goodbye to winter. The sound of the sea in your ears, and almost nothing else. The great thing in the off-season is the solitude on the beaches. You can stroll for hours. It's ideal for anyone who enjoys braving the elements. Or a brisk jog around the dunes. If you're interested in learning more about nature on the island, there's a huge selection of guided tours all year round. There's a lot to learn about Sylt's landscape.
How do sand dunes migrate?
The wind blows the sand over the windward side, pushing the dunes forwards, and the sand slides back down on the other side.
But at some point, it's time to go inside and warm up. What better place than a cozy tea shop? Tea drinking is a beloved ritual all over North Frisia, ideally with delicious cake to go with it. The tea is strong, the perfect pick-me-up. Another place you can go to warm up, the beach saunas. 5 of them along the west beaches. Sitting here, you have a great view of the sea, and you can jump in to cool off. The saunas usually open in early April as spring makes its comeback.
Sylt's landmarks are its lighthouses. There are 5, 4 of which are still in operation, but you can only visit one, the Hörnum Lighthouse in the far south of the island. And that's exactly where I have my next date.
Welcome to Hörnum Lighthouse. I'd like to tell you a bit about the lighthouse and show you what it looks like inside. Do you understand the northern dialect?
A little, but I'd prefer to speak standard German.
Then let's do that. Come this way into the lighthouse.
There are guided tours of the lighthouse several times a week. Doesn't get higher.
No, we're now in the Holy of Holies of a lighthouse. We're in the lantern room. Every lighthouse has its own ID signal.
How do they work? No one's doing it manually.
Since the lighthouse was converted to automatic operation, it is run automatically. No one has to control it. And a lighthouse beacon runs from an hour before sunset to an hour after sunrise. That's how long it emits light.
Well, I learned something today. Quite windy up here, but it's a great spot to check out the southern tip of the island. This is pretty much the only place where you can get such an amazing view of the South Shore. Let's now continue our journey. Our V-Mail of the week takes us to warmer climes, to Laos. That's where our viewer Chongchi Wing from Hong Kong spent his vacation, always with his yo-yo at hand. Enjoy. My next stop is the Forces of Nature Museum, and the clue is in the title. Here you can experience firsthand how natural forces impact the island. The wind, for example, it pretty much moves mountains here, or at least dunes. And storm tides, they're extremely heavy on the beaches. Every year, winter storms and storm tides take a heavy toll on Sylt's coast. The Coastal Protection Service works hard to make sure the island stays in its current shape. And throughout the decades, the methods they have for keeping the sand on the island have evolved greatly. See for yourselves.
First, they built a groin and hoped the waves would break on it before they hit land. A good idea, but it didn't work. The spit of land on Sylt's southern tip is the most at risk. There, enormous tetrapods were installed on the beach in hopes of keeping the sand in place, but the sea was stronger. Nowadays, sand is retrieved from the sea. Ships suck it up off the coast like vacuum cleaners, and pipelines pump it onto the beach. That costs 4 to 6 million euros a year.
Sylt is an island in motion. Can that process really be stopped? I'm talking to Dr. Matthias Strasser, who runs the Forces of Nature Museum. Sylt is known for its beautiful beaches, but the sand keeps causing problems. Why is that?
Because the sand gets washed away by storm tides. Sylt is prey to coastal erosion. That is, sand isn't washed up onto the beach the way it used to be, and the beach doesn't grow, but naturally gets smaller because the sand is carried away. And that's even worse when there are storm surges. So if we want to preserve the shoreline, sand has to be added to it every year. And we do that with beach nourishment, or sand replenishment.
What would Sylt look like without human intervention?
It's in the nature of a coast to be in a state of flux. Everything changes. It's only a question of time. And here on Sylt, it's easy to see that if we didn't take measures to protect the coastline, the island would continue to move toward the mainland, that is, eastwards.
Is that really the best solution? I assume that the animals that live 10 kilometers from the coast are very different from those that live near the beach. Couldn't this interference in the ecosystem become a problem?
That's true. It is interference. But considering the alternative measures, both coastal and nature conservationists agree that this is the most environmentally friendly intervention.
How is climate change affecting Sylt?
We have a rise in sea levels around Sylt. That means storm surges begin at a higher level, because the basic sea level is already slightly higher. We also notice a change in the species composition in the Wadden Sea National Park. That may not be something tourists notice, but those of us doing research here really see changes in the habitat.
Are the changes problematic?
The term problematic is a very human viewpoint. Here, too, change is a part of life. It's unstoppable. That much is clear. On the one hand, we have to consider how we can take climate protection measures where we have a human influence. On the other hand, some of these alterations are irreversible, and we have to adjust to them and make the best of the situation. In general, we, as a civilization, bear a great responsibility to deal with the environment more carefully than we have done in the past, for the sake of future generations.
And that's what the Frisians have always done, defy natural forces and adapt. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you.
Speaking of change, up until the 1950s, the Frisian mudflats were a natural habitat for oysters. But that changed suddenly when they were wiped out due to overfishing. But now, they're back.
In 1986, Dietmeyer's Austern Company began to revive Sylt's oyster tradition. Oysters are no longer fished, they're farmed. This is Germany's only oyster farm. What now comes to your table as a Sylter Royal is an oyster species native to Japan that's been introduced on Sylt. Biene Pörner heads the oyster farm. She's responsible for the well-being of the shellfish. More than 1 million of them a year are harvested in List. In the spring, the oysters are taken to the Wadden Sea and stay there all summer so they can grow to a good size. Sylter Royals need a lot of care. The mesh sacks they're in have to be turned over and shaken daily.
These are our juveniles. As you can see, they're still very small. They need to go through a few more growth phases. We take them in for the winter and put them out again in the summer to continue growing.
List Bay is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so you can only get close to the oyster's habitat on a guided tour. Otherwise, it's off limits. The oysters spend the winter in a tank filled with seawater. A seawater pipeline keeps them in the right environment.
In general, people say that oysters taken out of cold water taste better. But personally, I like them the way nature delivers them. If that's 20 degrees Celsius, they taste like oysters from 20-degree seawater.
And if you like them even hotter, Sylter Royals can be steamed or baked and served with any number of toppings.
Time to try them myself. What an amazing selection, but I'll start with the classic. the raw oyster. Chew 10 times for the best flavor, apparently.
Lecker.
It's a good job I'm hungry.
My buddy Steve Hainish would love this place. He's traveling the world, and whenever he gets the chance, he sends us a video of his adventures. This week, he's in Switzerland, and I bet he found some great food there too.
Welcome to Winter Wonderland, welcome to Switzerland. In this episode, I'm gonna show you around in the Jungfrau region. We're gonna go skiing, we're gonna go on top of big mountains, and we're gonna taste the delicious Swiss food. Let's go. So we're up on the first mountain here in Grin in the ski resort of Grindelwald. First things first, the first cliff walk. Well, at least we have the whole thing to ourselves because there are not many people up there with this weather today. So after this glorious cliff walk, it's now time to make use of all this snow we got today and hit the slopes. When in Switzerland, of course you need to eat Rösti, and this is what we have for lunch. The best way to get around in Switzerland is by train. And here we are, taking one of those picturesque rides to the top of Europe today. Now we made it to the top of the Jungfraujoch, aka the top of Europe, on 3,571 meters. Last thing to do in this ski region is as well the after ski drinks. Prost.
Climb in.
I've been waiting for this moment since I got here. I'm going to get a bird's eye view of Sylt, and the best part, I get to tell the pilot where I want to go.
So what do you want to see?
I want to fly over the narrowest part, and I've visited the Hörnum Lighthouse. I'd like to see that from above too.
Hörnumer Leuchtturm, den würde ich ganz gerne noch mal von oben sehen.
Let's go. That's the narrowest point. Sylt isn't even 500 meters wide down there. Westerland, that's where my trip began. The Kampen Lighthouse? Now we're flying over the northern tip.
Hörnum's coming up on our right. We'll have a good view of the lighthouse.
And I was there. A farewell flight over the southern tip. And back to the ground. Time flies when you're having fun.
Loop the loop next time.
Yeah! That was it already. My day on Sylt has come to an end, and what a day it's been. A walk on the beach, delicious oysters, seal spotting, and I even got to fly. I hope you guys had as much of a good time as I did. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.